In the darkest night, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Surviving together, victorious, and never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hey guys, I got a new setup. That's why it's a little ponky today. So anyway, if I'm looking this way, it's because I still have the chat on my computer on this side, and I need to move it over to where I will be looking. So hang on one second as I do that. I'm a little discombobulated today. Hi, Crystal. So glad you joined us. I was wondering if we'd have an audience with the move time. I was told later, I was told at like 2:30 that yeah, that's why I got a new little bit of setup. I got a lamp put right here, and it seems to be helping. So I'm casting my laptop onto a different monitor. So whew, we got it all set now. Frizzy hair. It is very hot here today, and I have been going. So I was told that although my thumbnail said time move 5 o'clock, that StreamYard still had 3 o'clock because that's my ordinary StreamYard time. I had thought I had changed that as well. Apparently not. So I changed it. Shannon, so glad you're here. Deaudrey, so glad you're here. Even just stopping in and saying hi, that's perfect. You can, wow. You're getting on it. Yeah, his grad party, it went great. He had a bunch of friends show up. Not so much family, but that's okay. And but a lot of his friends showed up. His welding instructor showed up, which was awesome. He's like going to all his grads parties who are having them to show them support, which was wonderful. We had all of his welding things that he's done over the last few years brought over and put out, along with that trifold with all the pictures along the years type of thing, and which he put together. That he picked the pictures out and went to Walgreens, got them printed out. And so I told him, I said, decorations, that's your game. I encouraged him to bring his stuff that he had made. So that was like, half the decorations right there. But we have cupcakes up the yin yang left over. When my mom said she was ordering the cupcakes and they come in flats of 48, and I was like, okay, we're gonna have maybe 30 people, 48 cupcakes. No big deal. Some people have 2, we'll have a few left over, no worries. And she said chocolate or vanilla. I said, well, let's get half and half, because I know my son likes vanilla. A lot of people like chocolate. Apparently, and I did not know this, they will not split the order and do 24 and 24. So my mom got 48 chocolate and 48 white cake. So I have, add 48 and 48, was that 96? I had 96 cupcakes and like 10, 20 people. So we made a full tray and we sent it off with one parent, and because she's got a gazillion kids. So we're like, here you go. And we're going to try and do the same with another tray because I think we've still got like 3 left. Oh, but the watermelon went pretty quick. And that was good because that was a whole watermelon that we cut up. I may put my hair up. I'm not liking this frizziness today here. You love cupcakes? Oh, well, I definitely send you one. You would have to beware, though. It was white frosting that they just put some green dye on. And so it wasn't like green frosting, green and white frosting, because those are his school colors. So everyone who had cupcakes, you knew it because they had green teeth and green lips. I'm like, whoopsie, sorry about that, guys. Had no clue. But that was rather amusing. Um, but it was a good time, and you know, just a small crowd, but a lot of his friends, and they stayed past 3, and then I set most things up, so they were on teardown, and they got everything back over here, I think. So I need to double check that they locked the door and brought the key back. Very important on that we do not leave the clubhouse unlocked. So I will be checking that after I leave here today. Yes, Donna, how are you doing today? It was a success. Not a whole lot of family, but that's fine. My parents, his grandmother. I thought maybe his dad was gonna show, but I guess not. But his one of his uncles came, which was lovely. Hadn't seen him in a real long time, so got to catch up with him. It's his one of his dad's brothers. So that was really nice. So yeah, a lot of people were busy doing things. It's a Saturday. We understand that. So that so many of his friends showed up and gave him cards, and even some gave him small gifts was, just wonderful, and to a T, every one of his friends, had such nice things to say, genuinely, like, I really care about you. Thank you so much, and it just, it was a lot. You didn't eat anything? See, I got cookies too because, not everybody likes cake. So I got some cookies. And yeah, I didn't keep my hands off of them, but I did pretty good. I only had 2 oatmeal and 1 chocolate chip. So mommy got a little tubby. We've confirmed that at the doctor's office. And when I sit, there's a roll that wasn't there before the winter. So yeah. I've eaten my fair share of carbs, and it was a good ending to a day that I had said was going to be the end of my non-exercise, I guess. I had some pain after walking for a few days, and that really kind of set me off and screwed up my schedule and everything. And I'm going to get back into it, and I just might have to do it every other day walk, because I'll tell you, being active for that long, that's probably as active as I've been in a really long time, which is so sad to say. And I will 100% admit, very, very sad to say. But I feel it in my lower back. I feel it in my hips. I feel it in my knees. It's like, oh God. Actually, at one point, I was sitting down, my head was down by my knee, don't ask. But I straightened my knee and I heard the like this cry. I'm like, whoa, okay, that's like bone on bone or something, or the cartilage just scraping. It wasn't a good sound. It wasn't good. Let's just say mom's knees aren't doing as good as they should be, which I would take glucosamine and chondroitin if they could make the freaking pill smaller. Why can they make Xanax, this powerful pill, be this big, right? Itty bitty. Flexor, we talked about that. Muscle relaxant, itty bitty. And yet all of the chondroitin, at least that we have here in the States, I don't know, but you guys, but they're horse pills. They're huge, they're like the old vitamins. I'm like, seriously, you guys cannot figure out how to get the glucosamine and chondroitin with less filler stuff together in a way that's going to take it to our bodies efficiently, smaller than this? Yeah, Georgia, I could use a pill cutter. The problem is that I take so many pills in general, and I'm trying to cut down. That's one of my main goals for this year, was to start cutting down on some of the medications that I've just been taking for so long. I don't know if I need them anymore. You know, I know I need my Lyrica unless I'm exercising really, really frequently. I'm probably still going to be on that. But the muscle spasms it's causing are daily now, and I don't like it. I don't like it because I'm very scared of what that's going to mean 10 years down the road. Let's say I stopped it today. Just the amount from what I've been taking over the past 20 years, what are these muscle spasms going to be like 10 years down the road? Are they going to be so often, so severe, I'm not going to be able to walk? Am I just going to be bouncing whenever I'm sitting down, basically? I don't know. And believe me, that was a look at the universe and say, okay, what are we going to do about this one moment? Because that's not something I really, really want to have happen. I've got to also get on magnesium. Um, I don't have any magnesium. Magnesium, I think it's magnesium titrate. It Dr. Haver or Haverman, I forget which one it is, recommended. She's got 3, and I think vitamin D. I want to say calcium and magnesium, but for some reason I don't think it was calcium, because it surprised me that it wasn't, but maybe it is. I'll have to look it up again. It's on that video that Mel Robbins' podcast, when she was on that one, the video I have, I'm like, everybody needs to watch this. It's the one I linked there. And at the very end, she recommends for women who are perimenopause or menopause, the 3 supplements that they should be on. So, oh, in capsule form. Now that would be nice. Okay, so they do make gummies. They're hard to find, but they do make them in gummy form. However, I have not done any research on how effective they are. Um, Anytime you take something from pill form and go to gummy, you know, everything has, sometimes, what is it? It's like you should take vitamin D and magnesium together because they help your body absorb it better, and there's different things like that. So, I wonder, with the fillers that they have for it, is there something like that that's making it more effective versus putting it in a gummy form? But I will check that capsule form out. That would be nice. Gummies do add sugar. I'm thinking if I'm cutting out the 15 calories I'm getting from my gummies, I'm not going to worry about. I will admit my daily vitamin is gummy. I take too many other pills. I'm chewing those gummies. Some of my gummy bears. I don't have any other gummies in my life, so those, I get those gummies. You get yours from Weber Natural. So you order them, Crystal, is what I'm hearing. I need to do research into it, is what it boils down to. But I know I'm going to need to get on it, because not only for my knees, it was my hips that were causing me issues. And I had a hip flexor muscle problem when I was in my competition days, and I started taking the glucosamine chondroitin, and it helped. And I didn't have a problem with it. And then once I stopped competing, I stopped taking them, and I didn't have a problem just in my everyday life walking. It's just when I'm using that more heavily. I don't know if I'd have the same issue doing yoga, but I want to have some active activity, if that makes sense. I do want to do yoga. I do want to do wall Pilates. At this point, it's just a matter of fitting it all in. So I've said to myself, in an effort not to overwhelm me, I'm adding one thing at a time. So we'll add the walking, and if I can do that for a couple of weeks solid, and I feel like it's part of my regimen and I'm getting it down, then I will figure out where I can add the yoga, or wall Pilates. Again, one at most. I'll check Walmart. We've got a Walmart right near here. I don't know if we carry that, but I can look that up online. That's not a problem. I would say you would think because it's Walmart that what they carry there, they carry here, but I do know that there is major differences between what some of these major stores do for Canada and what they've got here in the US, that there are some, major differences in brands and things like that. So yeah, I'm gonna get there. But mommy got a little tubby and I don't like it. And none of my shorts fit from last summer that I got. I just bought them all because I had no clothes. I got rid of my entire closet. I was keeping them for the fat days, and I got rid of everything. And now mommy's a little too fat for her non-elastic shorts. So something got to give. Although I'm gonna wear the same pair of shorts all summer long. As long as I don't go outside, it's not too bad though. You guys can't see anything from here. I could not be wearing pants for all you know. I am, just FYI. But I work from home, and even if I'm doing a Teams meeting or something like this, that's all I need is a top, and we're good to go. So I had nothing planned for today, but then I did. I said we were going to go back to basics, and we are. And it was funny because this topic kind of just fell in my lap, and it's something that I had on my list and I wanted to talk about. And it's going to be an ongoing topic because there is so much to tease out from this and so much that we can talk about in terms of how to deal with it, and not just therapy, but day-to-day things. How do you deal with triggers? What kind of triggers are there? And there's so much. I already have Wednesday's thing, planned out. There is a part of it. Part of this I took from. I listened to a bunch of different people, and this particular doctor, her name's Kim Sage. I really like her. She just got a new cat. I don't know how old this video was, but the most beautiful white cat with blue eyes with just a little bit of light gray on its face you have ever seen in your life. Long hair cat though, so I would go bonkers because I can't make sure that I brush on a regular basis. Judge, your husband works from home often in a work shirt and a sarong on the bottom half. Exactly. I mean, come on. Why the heck not? I have to have a blanket or something. My chair seat. It's harsh on the bare skin. Let's put it that way. It's not very soft. So I have to put a blanket down or something if I'm going to have shorter shorts on, or just underwear. So what am I talking about? What are we going to be talking about for the next few days, at least next few lives? Well, that's just the way to go for pants. All my yoga pants are, but all my yoga pants are also long. And my upstairs does not get the air conditioning very well, just like my upstairs does not get the heat very well in the winter. So I do still have to call the electrician and see how much it might be to get a ceiling fan installed. But that is definitely your long t-shirt, your pandemic uniform. Absolutely. I don't have any at this point. Let's take that back. I think I have one or two. Sometimes I'll use them as a night shirt or something like that. But it's been getting so hot here. It's like even that is like. What we were going to be talking about is PTSD versus C-PTSD. So post-traumatic stress disorder versus complex post-traumatic stress disorder. What are the similarities? What are the differences? And I will be focusing more on the complex post-traumatic stress disorder moving forward, just because I know a lot of us, majority of us, that's where our trauma comes. Our trauma comes from childhood. And you can guarantee that if your trauma is from childhood, actually, you can almost guarantee if your trauma is from childhood, you've got C-PTSD, okay, versus PTSD. It is possible to have PTSD as a child, but usually, and let's go back to the beginning when we were talking about single events versus series of events. So PTSD is going to be involved in those singular events, a car accident, a near-death experience, earthquakes, the natural disasters, war, even though, and depending on how long you're at war, I will say, depending on how long because I can see complex PTSD if there is something longer, but the types of trauma that war brings about, it's usually still encapsulated within PTSD. So it's not that CPTSD is limited to childhood. You can have CPTSD as an adult, and usually it's in the form of toxic or narcissistic relationships, whether it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, something along that nature, where it's an ongoing abusive situation. Excuse me, my mouth is so dry today. So the series of events, the types of things that can cause CPTSD, and again, you can think of this in adult and a child context, because these certainly can be, an adult physical abuse. So think domestic violence. Okay. Yes. And that's an awesome book. If none of you have read that, if you haven't gotten it, Crystal is put here. Got to go over here because I don't have my mouse. Let me put this up. So Basil van der Kolk, he has a book called The Body Keeps the Score, which is absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, it can be. It can be very, very difficult, because it's like everything you read is like, oh my God, that's me. Oh my God, that's me. Oh my God, that's me. And then realizing all of the stuff that you've done that you shouldn't have done, that all this information I wish I would have known sooner. There were these, we're going to talk about on Wednesday, emotional triggers for CPTSD and what types of things that they can be. And gosh, I wish I had known more of this when I was first starting out parenting, because if I had, I might have been able to use that before I reacted. Now, I know we say that, the reactiveness is so much quicker than the consciousness, but if a certain noise or a noisy room or something is something that really bothers you, in the time that it takes for you might get really angry about that immediately, but the time it takes you to go to that person to talk to them, your consciousness can kick in that time, if you recognize it as, okay, this is a trigger for me. I'm angry right now. And if I go and do this, I'm going to be yelling, and I'm going to be yelling because of this trigger. And that's not something good. So you can break it, because there's space there for you to be able, your conscious mind to be able to kick in. And just listening to some of the stuff, I was like, oh my goodness. Geez, did I wish I had known a lot of this sooner. But we're going to talk about that on Wednesday. Today, I really just want to talk about the differences, and then I'm also going to go over some signs of C-PTSD. And this is why I wanted to talk about it as well, because most people think about it in only the childhood sense. They're like, what's the difference? One's adult, one's child. Not necessarily. And that's why we want to get to the concept that, and the reason they call it developmental trauma is because it's trauma that happens during your childhood, whether you're a kid, whether you're teens, into adolescent, anything under 18, really anything under 25, because your brain's still developing. And that's what we're talking about, your brain developing. Your brain hasn't fully developed. So all this trauma becomes hardwired into you. And that affects then how you react to something and your emotions. And when I heard about it that way, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a part of me. I mean, it's one thing to say that trauma, you know that trauma lives in your nervous system, and we've learned this, and we know that it reacts right away, but it was something different to say the reason it's reacting and has been for so long is because it was hardwired into you as a kid. It wasn't just that you picked these things up and then you should have learned from it when you were an adult, and just not done those things. It's so much harder than that, because you can't just let it go. There, you can't. It's who you are. That threw me for a little bit. I really had to sit and think on that, because that shaped my worldview. It just it reframed it a little bit for me in terms of the struggles that I've had, even the therapy that I've gone through, and why hasn't that worked, when I did go through it. And I haven't been in it in a while, but it was always behavioral therapy, cognitive therapy. And what they're finding is some of the more body-based therapies, the somatic therapies, they're more effective for C-PTSD, because your trauma is living in your nervous system and it's so ingrained in you that doing things and doing therapies that are training your body to respond differently to triggers is the best place to start, which makes perfect sense to me. It also makes perfect sense as to why just doing cognitive therapy or behavioral therapy didn't work for me, because I can think about it all day long. But if that stuff is hardwired into me, and my reaction to being triggered is thousandths of a second difference between my automatic reaction and my conscious reaction. We've talked about what's going to win every time, your automatic reaction. And so if we're not addressing that, then all my thoughts in the world aren't going to change it. They literally can't. They physically can't. Now, changing your thought patterns and changing how you view things is really important when we start talking about things like triggers, or just recognizing the signs and symptoms and recognizing that, hey, I'm doing this, so maybe I need to, I need to work on this, and realizing what's going on. That's very important. And your cognitive skills are very important to be able to do that. But it's not going to get to that core problem. It's just like why just doing medicine, having meds is not going to solve your problem. It may take the anxiety down. It may help the depression, but it's not going to affect the trauma that's already in your nervous system, that's been programmed there from years and years of abuse or neglect. Because it can be straight neglect. We're talking physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, bullying, even years and years of bullying, because that's an emotional abuse, right? Think about those things that we talked about with the ACEs study. Emotional and physical neglect, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. There's 5 of them right there. And those are like your prime candidates for developing C-PTSD in childhood. And, you know, it just carries on with you. So there's so much that just it just framed it differently for me. And that's why I try and say things several times, but I say it in a different way, or at least I try to anyway, because you may hear one thing, but it may not resonate with you. Whereas if I say it a little bit different, it may go, a light bulb it may be your light bulb moment. So if I sound like I repeat myself, I do, and I know I do. But hopefully I'm doing it just a little bit different so you guys get the picture. It does. I have read this, that it encompasses borderline personality disorder. And there are some other disorders that it kind of encapsulates within it as well. I didn't want to get into any of that because then we're really diving deep into mental health and, you know, talking about specific diagnoses. So, oh, good, because I repeat myself all the time, Audrey. I'm glad that's the way you learn. I learn by, if I ever really had to learn something, I'd have to write it. There was that act of writing it down and putting it in my own words, or even if I'm just copying directly, there's something about that just solidified it to me. So even when all my, you know, law school, everyone's taking notes on the computer, and I really tried, but you should, my notes are like, you know, I'm doing this, I've got my own shorthand, and then I've got arrows back to this because that goes to that concept. And you know, the teacher starts talking about this, that, and the other, and then it's going back to the front, you know, so I'm putting stars and 1s and 2s, and, you know, they're just horrendous. And then I would translate them into the computer in a way that made sense, you know, in order with everything. And then that was like another repetition of it. And sometimes I'd realize I had holes and I didn't quite understand a concept. So that was really helpful for me for knowing when I needed to also be asking more questions about things. Hey, Janet, we are really actually just getting into the meat of the chat. We're talking about PTSD versus C-PTSD today. And one of the big things I want people to realize is that although C-PTSD, if you've gone through series of traumatic events in your childhood, you can guarantee the type of trauma you have is C-PTSD. You can get it as an adult. You can get it as a child and an adult. And the adult types are when we're talking about toxic relationships, basically, whether that's with a narcissist, whether that's with, you know, somebody who's physically abusive, which they're going to be a former narcissist as well, generally. Any of those types of ongoing relationships that are not good for you, you can develop C-PTSD from. So I know some people tend to simplify it and say, you know, one's adult and one's child, but that's not quite true. And so I wanted to stress that aspect for people. And because one of the things we'll be going through, and you'll see, one of the hallmarks of C-PTSD is that when we grow up, we tend to be in relationships that were just the same as it was when we were a child. Those unhealthy patterns we repeat. It's we don't do it consciously. We don't choose these people because they remind us, say, of our abusers. But we know how to respond. And there's also a piece of us that's like, I'm going to get it right this time. So we'll go through those. I want to go through that a little bit more specifically, but drink. I want to give just a little bit of history, just some kind of definitions that all the therapists agree on, because this is what the DSM says. Now, there's also something called the ICD-11. This is put out by the World Health Organization. So this is the international standards. And go figure, the DSM, which is the US, does not match the ICD-11. They are different as to how they define. One of the big differences is PTSD was recognized in the DSM in 1980. Now, it was in the 1970s, they started kind of, going, oh, all these people coming home from Vietnam, they've kind of something different about them when they came back. They're not adjusting to society very well. What's going on? So that's when they started to research this and look into it. And they were like, oh, we're going to call this post-traumatic stress disorder. And you guys know that it all came out of the war effort. So in 1980, the DSM, which is, for those of you, if you don't know, it's the manual that gives all of the diagnoses. So it's the diagnostic something manual. I forget. And I think we're on DSM 5 now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're on 5. I don't think we've gone to 6 yet. So there are 3 main hallmarks of PTSD that the DSM and the international standard agree on. The DSM in 2013 decided to add a 4th symptom category to PTSD that the international standard does not have. Why they decided to do this, I don't know. The other thing is C-PTSD, although it is very recognized in the US as a type of post-traumatic stress disorder, and they've even defined, in addition to the 3 PTSD categories, the original 3, you also have to, there's 3 additional ones for C-PTSD. So there's a total of 6 for C-PTSD. And therapists all know about this and they're all instructed in this, but guess what? It is not in the DSM. Not yet, anyway. There's definitely people, there's advocacy around this, and there's people trying to get it in. And I'm sure that by the time they do the next iteration of the DSM, that it will be in. It's just a matter of time at this point. But curious, just interesting that it hasn't made it in there yet. So, but international standards do recognize C-PTSD. So what are we looking at? Well, with PTSD, these are your original clusters, and you're going to have these 3 in C-PTSD as well. There's intrusion and intrusion. Some people will just call it intrusion. Some people call it intrusion and re-experiencing. This is your flashbacks, your nightmares, the intrusive images and thoughts that'll flash before your, flash in your head. So all of that stuff that comes and you don't want it to. So it's intruding on your mental state. Arousal and reactivity, and what they're talking about here, and some people will just call it on edge, as somebody had the category just listed as on edge. This is where you're on edge, you're hyper vigilant. This is you have your anger outbursts, your big emotions, you have trouble sleeping, you have trouble concentrating, you're irritable. All of this stuff falls within the arousal and reactivity category. Jumping at loud noises or jumping because somebody touches you, if that's like a trigger for you, again, that's part of this. And then there's the avoidance category. And this is where we avoid thinking about the trauma. We avoid talking about the trauma. We avoid going to therapy because we don't want to deal with the trauma. We just, nope, nope, nope. And it's not that you have to have every single one of these within like avoidance, but avoidance as a general saying is this is something that's going to be going on. And it can be something like this, where, remember, we're talking about classic PTSD here. So let's say you got into a car accident and you don't really want to drive a car, You got bucked off your horse and you don't want to get back on that horse. No, that's very simplistic. And I said that because, we have that phrase of, well, you just got to get back on that horse and ride again, right? Not doing those things, not going to an island because there was a landslide, or you were in the tsunami, or something of that nature. So you don't want to go to the sea again. You're avoiding those situations where something could occur, where it's similar to what the trauma you had was. So those are your three main ones. And then in 2013, they added another one, which is negativity. So it's negative changes in your cognition and moods. This is just, your persistent thoughts that you're not good enough, that there's something wrong with you, there's something wrong with the world, there's something wrong with other people. You get stuck in a negative mood, and that's like where a lot of the depression comes from. So they added that category. I guess they felt that they needed a emotion, more of something to speak to that. So the three things that they have additional for C-PTSD, they're all more behavioral related, and usually behavioral related within a relationship. Because this is really what is the hallmark of C-PTSD. It's that you to another person, something was wrong. Either you had physical abuse, you had emotional abuse, there was sexual abuse, there was neglect, to that level, that emotional neglect or physical neglect to that level. Not quite abuse, but definitely neglected. Bullying, it's all in relation to another person. So it's how you're relating, not only just to the world, but it's because of this other person that you have this issue. It's something that was ongoing, okay, that was just drilled into you repeatedly, dun, 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 right? So I do want to make one distinction before I go through these, that just as you can have adult C-PTSD, as a child, you can have PTSD. Let's say you were abused sexually once. That's it. It's not an ongoing thing. It was just once. Traumatic? Yes. Is it going to fall into C-PTSD? Probably not. We're not going to say not totally, but probably not. Because a lot is going to depend on how you're able to deal with it. Do you deal with it? Do you just stuff it down? Do you have a support system that is helping you with it? How does it shape your world as a child going forward? Okay. So in general, we're talking about a single event versus a series of events. But when you're talking about things within childhood, there are more aspects that you need to look at to be able to decide whether this is CPTSD or just PTSD. So the things that they add on for the complex part is disruption in your sense of self, disruption in ability to regulate your emotions, and a disruption in social relationships. So let's take those one by one. Disruption in a sense of self. This is where when you hear people talk about a fractured self or a broken self, where you don't quite know who you are because your pieces have been parted. The trauma has affected you so deeply and on such a core level that who you were going to be is no longer. And you have to learn to reintegrate yourself again by when we get rid of these core beliefs that aren't true and aren't needed, but that we go to. And these are hallmarks of CPTSD. And I'm going to go through, Dr. Sage goes through a list of 15 of them. I've seen 12 in a lot of places, and she had 12. She's up to 15 just because, she notices more. She has CPTSD. That's why I love her, because she talks from experience. And she will tell you just as when she's talking about something, and this is exactly what I was going through. This is exactly me. I didn't have food. I was raised on frozen dinners, and my mom, my parents never made anything. They never cooked. They never, and so she'll talk about everything that went on for her. If you guys can really hear me drinking and it's extremely annoying, please let me know and I'll just hit my mute button. I don't think about it when I do this. Audrey, I think you're right. I think the DSM, because this is something we utilize in the US, it's created by a set of people, right? Who is it? It's all the doctors and there, but I don't know exactly who makes up doing the things. I know there's a committee and whatnot, and they make up what's going to be in the DSM. But yeah, how they look at things, what their worldview is going to color it, certainly. 100%. I believe anyway. So disruption in your ability to regulate emotions. I don't think I need to speak more on this. That's just flat out, and I jump all in on that one. my ability to good. My ability to regulate my emotions is not very good. I'm getting better at it now. I told you guys I was going on this journey with you. Everything that I talk about, there is something I learned from it. Whether it's a subject that I thought I knew a lot about, I try and research till I find something different that I didn't know. And honestly, I did not know very much about CPTSD. It's not something that I had looked into. Like I said, all my therapy had been cognitive therapy, behavioral therapy. Nobody ever, they said I had major depressive disorder. I had anxiety, but nobody said CPTSD. No one even went to PTSD. And again, I can't say how many therapists I related my story to of what I went through in childhood in terms of the sexual abuse. But also when I look back on it, my home environment, you know, I there was significant emotional abuse that went on. And when we go through the signs of C-PTSD, I'll insert my own in there. Now I'll show you where I went, oh my God. Yeah, that's why I do that. It just really kind of blew my mind. And the third one, disruption in social relationships. We have trouble. And that is why you'll find videos out there that, is it C-PTSD or is it autism? Because in a lot of, and I had this question in myself, just going, am I autistic? Because I listened to some of the things, a lot of adults getting diagnosed with autism as an adult, especially now that we're just opened up the spectrum and said, well, it's here from here to here. Am I just on this level of it, because I know my ability with social situations is not good. One, I didn't learn any social skills to begin with. I didn't have anybody to teach me those. And I didn't just pick up on them myself. Well, there's a reason for that. So it's interesting. It's interesting the comparison that they make between the two, going, there's some similarities here. It doesn't mean you're autistic, though. So you need to be, looking at that. It was really interesting. And it was like, oh, okay, good. I'm not nuts for thinking that maybe I might be autistic. I don't have a lot of those other things. And I was like, okay, I'm not, but God, some of these are just like bang on. Yeah, they're bang on for C-PTSD. So these additional 3, I think, again, for me, when I thought about it and they said it in this type of way, that it's serious emotional disruptions during your formative years, so that your emotional baggage from trauma gets hardwired into you. And that trauma that's hardwired is going to affect how you respond to the world. When one of the therapists, one of the doctors put it that way, that was my light bulb moment. I went, oh my gosh. Because I heard about other people saying, well, it fractures yourself and, and some of the other ways that they had talked about it, but it didn't really cue me into, it didn't get to what it needed to until I heard it this way. Because for me, then that made sense in how I've explained trauma, that it's in your nervous system. So saying something's hardwired, electric, your nervous system is electrical, that just boom, boom, boom. That was like, oh my gosh, now I get it. Janet, well, I don't know, maybe in the future we'll do one of those C-PTSD, autism things. It's definitely, I love mental health. I really do. And I have deep respect for therapists. I also know that we as a society, and therapists as doctors, because they have to bill certain ways, like to put labels on things. What do I have? We go to the doctor and we want to know, what do I have? Whether this is our physician or our mental health professional. And we want to label what it is. Talking about C-PTSD and realizing that that's what I have. And that encompasses everything that I deal with into that. But even if I didn't have that diagnosis, looking at what the basis of the trauma is, and that's why, again, your depression and your anxiety really are secondary to everything else that's part of C-PTSD, and that's why meds alone aren't going to fix it. You have to fix the root cause. And I think that our time spent with our behavioral, with our mental health professionals can be much better served by trying to figure out what the root cause of what we feel is wrong with us. Where does it come from? And if there isn't, if there's no answer, then it might be something like, okay, well, there's a medical reason for that. Then it's autism versus having something that's just mental related. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that one, Crystal. And I think when we go through these 15 signs, I mean, all of us are going, I thought when she said 15 signs of this, hey, Rick, how you doing? How's Canada treating you today? Psychiatrists are crazy people's jobs. Yeah, you often say you put your physicians kids through college, right? With the amount that you went there. I thought, 15 signs of C-PTSD. Okay, well, maybe I've got, half of them or something. I did not expect to actually go, yeah. There's nothing out there that when they say, X number of signs that you've got whatever, I'd be like, yeah, there's that and there's that, but I don't have that and that. 15 signs, and I went, yep, checked everything off. So, Crystal, I know you're going to be shaking your head yes, and you're going to be going, the whole line down as well. So let's get into it. Actually, before we do, there's one thing I wanted to say in terms of therapies. So just as I was saying that the somatic or the body body-based therapies for C-PTSD tend to be more effective. That's why exercise, yoga, meditation, things that are affecting your body and your nervous system tend to be more effective. There was actually a study with yoga. Now, they were doing it in terms of PTSD, but again, that is part and parcel of C-PTSD. This study, at least, found that yoga was more effective than any medication that had been given to these people. Now, that really makes perfect sense because the medication can't fix the trauma. All the medication can do is help you deal with it at a certain level. What they got to with the yoga as to why it was so effective is, again, because it's a body-based therapy. When you think about it, you're using your body, and the poses aren't going to be necessarily comfortable. Maybe a little bit of pain involved, a little bit of discomfort. You only have to hold it for a little bit, and you try and get better and better and more flexible as you go and be able to hold it longer. And that uncomfortableness, that discomfort that we feel as we're trying to regulate our breathing. And, unless we're, a practicing yogi and we've got it down pat, that equates to physical pain. That is no different than emotional pain in our brains. If you did a brain scan of someone who's having emotional pain and someone who's having physical pain, they look the same. You cannot tell the difference from the scan. So it makes sense. You're lighting up the exact same areas when you're doing the physical pain. And that's not to say that go out and do something that's going to hurt yourself. But it's the yoga, it's the putting yourself in just a little bit of distress, just a little bit. And I can do this for a little bit longer. Okay, just 30 more seconds, guys, 30 more seconds. You know it's going to be over with, okay? And it's not something so uncomfortable that you're just, going to need medical treatment. Just a little bit. And that's why they found that it's been so effective with treating PTSD. And I would argue then, the exact same is going to be the same for C-PTSD. And I think that's why a lot of people with childhood trauma find it very effective. And definitely why I want to get into it again. So starting the walking tomorrow, and then we're going to add the yoga in within a couple of weeks. So let's see, it's June 15th. So I thought by 1st of July, whatever our live is, the beginning of July on Saturday. Hopefully at that point, I'll be telling you the next day I'll be putting my yoga into practice, or I did it that day. We'll see. So hang on, I need to take a big drink. There we go. Hey, Seventh, thanks for joining us. I don't know, because these days I'm not a big part of pretty much anybody else's life beyond mine. Now that my son is out of my hands, not quite 18 yet, so I still got a little bit of work to do, but his graduation party's done, his graduation's done, he's got his car back, his engine got rebuilt, I get my car back now. I'm free. I am free to do whatever. So I've been focusing a lot on myself and things here, and trying to get my life in order and trying to get my house in order. So I have not been on a lot of other people's shows and things like that. Although I am going to be on my Others Keeper Tuesday, I believe it is. We've been trying to get on there and just has not been matching. So I believe I'm talking about grooming. So more to come on that. I don't know. Yeah, I know it doesn't stop, but at least the everyday type of, I don't feel bad then that I don't make him breakfast. You're 18. Go do it yourself, or whatever. I mean, he still lives at home, so there's still going to be, obviously care involved, whatever. But if I want to go someplace and I'm gone for a few days and it's during the week, I don't feel bad, because I'd made a promise to myself as a single parent. I was always going to be here on the days that he had school. And I made that when he got older and I had the ability to travel, if I wanted to go see a friend for the weekend or something like that. So it's like junior, senior year. But I said I was always going to be back for his, even though I could work from anywhere, always going to be back for school. Now I don't have to. So, but I do want to say there is, I don't know if anybody else caught AA Run's video on demonetization. Several of the newer SPTV channels have been demonetized. Here's why. And it's important for us because of our ripples. So Jenna Miscavige, Mike Brown, I want to say Liz Gale, and I think there was a fourth one, but I can't remember. But I remember those three at least. The issue is simulcasting. And so the way YouTube looks at it is, let's say that I'm on my mother's keeper, and we're going to simulcast it to my channel as well, and I'm on there. The argument had been that it's on my channel and I'm contributing to that unique content. Therefore, the video is also unique content for my channel. The problem with that is YouTube looks at it as you're doing your live. When you're done with your live, there's one video. One video, one channel. That's it. So if you want to do a simulcasting and do it to multiple, do it to both of your channels or something, you would have to do it like half and half. Okay, now everyone, we're switching our channels, I'll start on my other's keeper. Now we're going to switch to Sharon's channel and we're going to cast from there. Everybody jump on over. So there's potentially a really big issue with doing something on our channel and just simulcasting it on the boat. Even if, say, somebody was on the boat screen and was contributing to this. So at this point, at this point, I don't have to worry about it because I'm so far from monetization, but it was just something to think about it and think about where things might be in the future. I don't know if anybody at the Lifeboat has seen it because they're monetized. So YouTube very well could demonetize them. And you can reapply in 90 days. So it's a 3-month suspension. We're not talking they're just demonetize that particular video. No, they're demonetizing your channel. So it's something serious. And I haven't gotten with Spanx to see if it's something that he's seen. He or Tommy, I'm sure, has probably seen it, or someone's brought it to their attention. I don't know what they'll do with the simulcasting from this point forward. So if it goes bye-bye, you guys will know why. So just wanted to let you know. Hey, Mark, how you doing? Yeah, Janet, a lot of people are arguing about it, and really are arguing for the fact that if you're involved, although there may be one show, quote unquote, it really is unique content because you're in it as well. I don't know. It's how their algorithm works. It's how they've made their rules, and unless they change it. But for us, we are a gazillion subscribers away from 1,000. So like, I'm not even worried about it. But guys, we are creeping up on 1,000 hours of watch time. We need 4,000 watch hours. And for our little channel, that is humongous. That's huge. I'm so excited about that. We were over 850 last time I looked, and it's been a few days. And I put up those shorter lives, which are shorter videos, which I have a bunch more to do. As you can see, my book, this is my book where I write everything down on my individual days for my thing. So all these tabs are a video that I need to make. So I've done 2 of them. I should take the tab off then, right? So I made that video. So I need to do more of them. But so I talked about that. Let's get into the 15 signs of C-PTSD as Dr. Kim Sage put them. I really should link this video of hers because it was really good. So if you want to listen to it in her words, and she explains things even more than I'm going to, you'll have that there. Awakened? Oh my gosh. How are you today? So good to see you. Yeah, the issue, Donna, is if they decide to demonetize them, they're demonetizing the channel. So everything, all the videos for 90 days are demonetized. It's not like they are saying, you know, you messed up on this one video, it wasn't unique content, so we're just going to demonetize that video. You don't get money for that video. It's you're not getting any money, period, for whatever period of time we've set the demonetization for. So that is the huge issue for the lifeboat. We'll just have to see how things, we'll just have to see how things play out. Aaron hasn't gotten dinged by it yet, but as he said, he's stopping. He's not going to be streaming on other people's channel at the same time now at all, to nip that in the bud there. So 15 signs of C-PTSD, of childhood C-PTSD. We are getting specific here, okay? So this is only when we're dealing with childhood. No particular order. Number 1, living in a state of hypervigilance. So an example of this will be that, you'll like this because you never feel fully safe. A great example of this is, they say, if you had eggshell parents, if you always felt like you had to walk on eggshells when you were a kid because you never knew what was going to happen. So you're always looking and scanning and figuring out, where's the next thing coming from? What do I need to watch for? Where's the next problem going to be? And you're constantly on edge. It's that on edge thing. So you're constantly, you're never fully relaxed and just calm and peaceful. And that's why people with childhood C-PTSD have a real hard time initially with meditation, because it's really hard to just be calm and be present in your own thoughts. So another one of the signs is isolation, isolating yourself. And I was pleased to hear from Dr. Sage that she thinks that isolation gets a bad rap, that there are certain people who isolate, who it's a comfort when they do. They isolate to be able to regulate our emotions. And it's not always a bad thing. It becomes a bad thing when we do it for too long and we have no connections with anybody. That can become a problem. So just this in particular, I don't look at it as necessarily a negative. It can be. But a lot of times people with this condition are going to isolate as an ability to regulate their emotions. Because when I'm not around anybody, I feel safe. I'm just with me. I don't have to be on guard. I don't have to be on edge. You can calm down. And so it may be that is our survival mechanism in terms of being able to come, because we have to. You can't live at this level all the time. You live with this level of stress all the time. everything suffers. Your mental health suffers, your health suffers, everything suffers. You've got to be able to regulate it and got to be able to calm down at periods of time. And so isolation may be one of the ways that you do it. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. One of the other hallmarks is repeating cycles and patterns in relationships of dynamics you had in childhood. So basically, this is if it's your parents who are your, abusers, if we're going to look at that particular relationship, what were they like? Were they a narcissist? We tend to seek out narcissists. We don't realize we're doing it, but there's a certain comfort in that pattern. We know how to deal with it. And there's also subconsciously I can get it right this time. I can do better. I know more now, right? And that leads into another one. I'm just going to take this out of order a little bit, which is perfectionism. Where's my thing? Perfectionism. Having a harsh inner critic, struggling with perfectionism. Oh my gosh. Is this me? Holy heck. Whew. Definitely. It's that if I'm perfect, then I'm worthy, then I'm lovable, then, I'm good enough. Nothing was my fault. But even though that's what you're striving for, underneath this feeling is this deep core belief that you are unworthy. So no matter how perfect you try to be, we can't be perfect. And so just by the fact of not being able to be perfect, we say to ourselves, we're proving to ourselves, see, I can't get it right. I can't be perfect. Something is wrong with me. And I'm not worthy of that. And so that's our horrible inner critic talking to ourselves. We've talked about these before, the chronic health issues. We look at the ACEs study, go back to that, and the video I did on that, and all of the correlations between the ACEs, the adverse childhood events, and chronic health issues later on in life. Wow. Right? How many times more likely are you to have X, Y, or Z if you had a score of 5 or more, if you had a score of 6 or more, if you have a score of 7 or more? I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into those correlations in terms of how many times more likely when I do the ACEs video. I know I've done one on it, and I want to redo that a little bit and have some more numbers for you in regards to that, because I think it's important that we realize by not dealing with it and letting these chronic issues continue, they cause us so many more problems down the road, so it's really important that we try and get a handle on it. Chronic mental health issues is another one. I mean, I think this kind of goes without saying. We have difficulty regulating our emotions. We have difficulty, dealing with things. So we tend to have, as secondary to our C-PTSD, we've got anxiety and depression and other things that were going on. And so now we've got more added on to ourselves that we have to deal with versus even just dealing with our regular emotions. Yeah, Crystal, I am with you. My dad demanded perfection. And I know now that in his mind, he was trying to teach me to strive to be my best. But he didn't explain it. If he had explained that and like said that, it would have been different. But instead it was, that's not good enough. You didn't clean that well enough. You've got to do it again. I came home with an A minus. Why wasn't it an A? In his mind, he was trying to teach me, did I know what I did wrong? And if I don't, then I need to learn what I did wrong so that we can be better. I don't know about you, but most fifth graders, if they get an A minus on something, really don't care what those other four answers were, right? I got the question on the Indians wrong. Native Americans, now we would say. Some things just aren't that important in the grand scheme of things. Take the A minus and run. So I understand the lesson he was trying to get across. It just, the delivery fell short. So I always felt like I fell short of his standards. And I always tried to be perfect, particularly in my grades. I was a goody two shoes. I would never dare do something out of line because holy crap if my dad found out. I mean, it was beyond just would he be disappointed, and I wasn't perfect. I mean, there was more to that than, I had more to fear than just that, but there definitely was that. So I strive to be good all the time until I didn't. I guess we'll say that. Crystal, I'm right there with you. There was always a but. There was always something more. Always something more. And I think all of you are really going to want to be here for Wednesday's live if you can, or at least watch it on repeat. We're going to be talking about 11 unconscious triggers, things that happen, situations that just are, but can trigger us, triggering things from our C-PTSD, that when you look at that situation and when you look at how it triggers you, you go, oh, some of it you may have already realized yourself. Some of it maybe you didn't. And it's putting those two and two together and making that connection and going, oh, that makes a whole lot of sense. I'll try and say physician, Rick. I don't want to trigger you. We'll try and go with physician. How about that? Yeah, Donna, I'm with you. My dad was a product of the Marines. I don't know how much his parents were on that. I don't really know a whole lot. I know he's Polish Catholic growing up, and strict parents. That's about as much as I get out of him. But he was in the ROTC all through college, and then went straight to Vietnam. And he retired from the military. Even he was in reserves the entire time, and he retired as lieutenant colonel. So the Marines is just who my dad is. Now, I can understand that now as an adult and put things in perspective as to why he did things. Does it make it any better that he did it? No. But there was still a certain amount of anger that I held until I realized a few things. And I was able to let go of a lot of that in regards to my dad and how things were growing up. Um, it's funny, Donna, that you say that your oldest or father was referred to as a sperm donor, because my son said this, and he was saying it kind of as a joke, kind of not. He was upset with me at the time. So he renamed me in his phone as birth giver. And so he'd say, "Hello, birth giver," instead of "Hello, mom." And I got to be honest with you, that first few times, that hurt. That hurt my feelings so much. And I honestly, I didn't understand. I didn't understand why it hurt so much. Because I knew that on some level he was joking, but I also knew why he did it. And for me not to be considered a parent, not to be considered mom, taking that title away, that was just evidence as my failure as a parent. And again, that goes back to our harsh critic on ourselves. So that was an emotional trigger for me. And that's one of the other hallmarks is emotional triggers. And these are sounds, phrases, situations that trigger an emotion within us and basically just throw us back into our childhood body. And we are back thinking the same things, feeling the same feelings. And we're talking about situations you may find yourself getting really upset over something, realizing it's a small thing, but going, "God, I'm really upset about that. I'm really angry. I'm really sad." Or, it's your response seems to be disproportionate to what the situation is. But yet you have this really big feeling. And so that's what emotional trigger is in terms of bringing back all that stuff you felt as a child, exactly how you felt it. And so it can throw your whole day off. You can you'd be upset. And sometimes you're not even sure why you're so upset about something because you're not realizing that it was an emotional trigger. So just having that knowledge of going, oh, something can be an emotional trigger was really helpful for me. And you explained it like this to give you some concrete examples. So one thing might be hearing a particular sound, the garage door close, the front door slam, the way somebody sighs, a particular sigh. There's meaning attached to that for you. Whatever that meaning is, whether it was that meant dad was home or that meant mom was pissed off, you knew it because that sigh always came before the tirade. There's something about whatever that noise is that is going to trigger you and throws you right back into how you were feeling, and you're going to respond to exactly how you were. So being able to look at situations when you feel or somebody points out that your response is a little disproportionate to what was happening, or something that you should have been maybe a little upset about, but it totally ruined your entire day and you're just in a bad mood the entire day. Realize why, realize what happened. The other thing can be if you've got a partner or, in this case, my son here, And you love cooking. And you love being able to do that. And they say, it's good, but it could use a little more of this. It's okay, but next time, could you do this? That always adding that but onto it, that is tapping into our sense of security, our sense of being good enough, and that can totally throw us right back. I want to find some more concrete examples of this because for me, that was very helpful. The definition itself was helpful, and just saying emotional triggers in this context. I mean, I've heard the word before, right? But hearing it in this context, and then hearing these concrete examples of it, it went, oh, now I gotcha. Now I gotcha. I'm still not exactly sure what it was about. It definitely, that birth giver comment definitely did hit on the I failed as a parent. Because, I think all of us, if you've had children and you didn't have great parents, or at least one, was pretty brutal. Just in general, we all say we want to be better than our parents, right? I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do this. I'm going to do this, that, or the other. I'm going to be better. And to be reduced to birth giver just meant that I totally failed at everything. And that was like my biggest concern in regards to my son, is that I would fail at parenting and he would be just as bad off when he grew up as I was. Because that was something I did not want for him. And I know there are certain things that I did that have affected him in a certain way, and that he's going to have to learn to work through in his relationships, and being able to not let that sort of situation affect him. But I know that I made mistakes, but to fail so outstandingly, oof, that was rough. Yeah, Janet, it does. I mean, grades are about an expectation. It's about doing your best, and it's how are you getting that message of doing your best across? My brother always got A's in art because he's an artist. He got B's in phys ed because he could do it. He just was not. I mean, he ran track, but that was it. And just to do something, I think, more than anything else. He was not a sports person. He is not to this day. He got B's usually in English. That was something he could kind of relate to. I think most artists can relate to, books and themes and things like that. So the rest of the subjects, we prayed for a C. It just, there was oftentimes that my brother was failing math class. It just did not make sense to him. I remember my dad grounding him for an entire weekend, so he had to study for his math test that he had on Monday. And he said he studied and studied and studied and studied. He didn't come much out of his room, I'll tell you that, because I remember this. And he got a C+. It was sufficient enough. My dad said, okay, I think he finally accepted then that there was just a limit to what my brother could do. He just was not going to be getting those A's. It did not make sense to him. And I'll tell you my first lesson in that with my child, because I expected they'd do their best. But I'll tell you, I also expected A's out of my son because I knew he was capable. And he had been getting A's when they started actually doing grades. He had been getting A's and stuff. And the first time he brought home a real major test and he got a C on it. And he was really proud of himself. And I came down too hard on him. And I admitted that right away because we had a discussion about it absolutely right away. I recognized the situation. We talked about it. It didn't make him feel any better at that point, but it did color how I dealt with things then on. It also gave us a great chance to talk about expectations because you can do the work and not just doing enough to get by. Because he said to me, he goes, Mom, I think it was a B minus maybe or something like that. It was B minus C. He's like, C is average. You're saying I can't be average? Oh my God. I'm like, you're 10. How does this come out of you? You know, it was a real check myself moment because he's my kid. I just expected that he'd get straight A's because he's my kid. I got straight A's without trying. School was very easy for me. Studying and learning information and being able to tell it back, whether it was in my own words or whatever, it was easy for me. I never had a problem. That continued with law school. Never had a problem. My son hates school. He did everything he could to get out of it. And when he finally could go to a trade school half the day, oh my gosh, his world opened up. He was so thrilled. He only had to take his 3 core classes in the morning there, and that was it. And then he was out of there. But it was a real moment that we had to chat about. There's a difference between being average and just doing enough to scrape by, just being enough to be doing enough to be average, when your capacity, when you're capable of so much more. So talking about expectations in terms of that it was a great chance for us to talk about it. And I did. I told him what his papa did to me and what he meant by it. And so what was I expecting out of him? I expected that he always did his best and that he tried his hardest. For the most part, that happened. There was a class or two that he just did not care about the subject, did not care. He just did not care. Could not care less. I had to accept at that point that he was my child, but he was not going to take to school like I did. It was not important to him. There were so many other things in life that were important to him that if he could not see the value of using it in life, this is at like 10, 11 years old, but this continued his whole time. Now he can see the value of some of those classes that he took. But some of them, he's like, why in God's name did I need to take that? Why did I need to learn any of that? I'm never going to use it again. And I agree. There is stuff like that. And that's when you have to have the conversation about being well-rounded, and it will affect you in other ways. You may not be pulling on that information, but It helps to kind of have a better understanding of the world then, or, whatever the situation is. But that first year was really hard for me when he brought home less than B's. I told him, I said, I expect A's and B's. C is average. You're not average. You're not an average child. You're capable of all A's. I know it. You know it. And he's like, okay, yeah. It's how much effort are you going to put in? I said, you get A's and B's, I'll be satisfied. You start getting C's consistently, we're going to have a chat. And that's how I left it, and that's, it was okay then. Anyway, long diatribe about grades, I guess. Oof, yeah. I can only imagine having an identical twin and having your parents compare you. I mean, you compare yourself as well, but gosh, what it would be like to have parents that would compare the two. And to a degree, my dad did that with me and my brother in terms of school, because like, your sister gets all A's. Why can't you? We're two totally different people. Even people, like there were people on the bus when I still rode the bus who did not believe that we were brother and sister. For one, we don't look alike. And we don't act alike. We're nothing in common. Nothing. People didn't even believe that we were brother and sister. I'm like, why would I lie that he's my brother? You'd think I'd pick somebody else if I was going to lie about it, but whatever. I'm reading your comment, daughter. Your youngest child was chubby as a child. When she started losing weight, you had to take her to the doctor to get a good idea of what her weight should be. And she said, I loved her when she was short and fat, so she wouldn't believe me about my weight. I'm not sure I understand that. That you thought that there was a good weight for her to be when she was losing weight? I'm not sure I 100% understand, Donna. Yeah, you're gonna have to explain that one a little bit to me. I got Frizz Central. I have got to get a better oil. I just have not gone out and gotten one. I should freaking just order it. I know Paul Mitchell has a good oil that works with mine. Okay, I will tell you my skinny fat story. I was a freshman and I was going to run cross country, and there was a gal, I think she was a senior, pretty sure she was a senior when I was a freshman, and her, I was going to say her name, but I don't need to. She was very fast, very fast. I mean, we're talking, 5Ks, a 20-minute mile is a decent time, a decent fast time. She was with the guys, she was doing, 18s, 17s. She was fast. Unfortunately, I had her dad as a doctor. I was 5'6", 125 pounds, and he told me that I needed to lose at least 10 pounds. You want to talk about a girl who was already self-conscious about how she looked. Now her doctor told her that she needed to lose 10 pounds. I was devastated. Absolutely devastated. And one day I was talking about this, and Jenny, her name was Jenny. Jenny overheard me and was like, you look fine. And I go, well, your dad told me I needed to lose 10 pounds. Oh my God, she went off. She was so pissed at her dad. So that made me feel good. That made me feel good. It helped a lot. It really helped a lot. It also made me realize that doctors aren't infallible. Because I don't know how you guys were raised, but I mean, the doctors were kind of the end all and be all. You had an issue, they diagnosed it, they told you what was wrong, and they gave you a solution to fix it. That was how things went, right? There wasn't this patient advocate, advocating for your own care. I mean, there's a second opinion type thing, but it just doctors were held up here. And so that really brought to me the how much doctors also bring in their personal beliefs. As much as they may not want to, you know, it's kind of like lawyers. Um, it still affects us. It's like when they say as a juror, are you able to leave your personal biases and beliefs outside and just decide this case by the law that we give you? That's one of the voir dire questions, standard voir dire questions. We can't. I mean, we're going to try to the best of our abilities, but there's a certain piece in there of how we think about people, of how we relate to people, that is going to color how we view their testimony. So you may view somebody as being credible, and somebody else may say they're not credible because of these subconscious things that are going through us. So try as we might, it's we can't totally, and it really made me understand that doctors were not infallible. Oh, you were worried that she was getting too thin. Got it. Oh, see, now that's the type of thing that my dad was, Mark. I mean, you shouldn't have that with teachers as well. My brother's older than me by 3 years, so um, and oh my Lord, thank goodness she stopped trying to get below 100. I'm 5'6". My happy weight is 125. That's where my body usually is if I'm in shape, or if I have muscle or have little muscle but a full layer of fat on the outside. 120, I still look okay. That's the teachers themselves should not be comparing you. You've got to remember, though, how old we are and how much teachers have learned, how much we as a society have learned to be better people. I mean, truly. And that's definitely for teachers as well. I can't imagine, being in the same class as your sibling, or having one, they were just had the teacher the year before. Oh my gosh, that'd be horrible. We moved so much. It was never an issue in elementary school. So the only time we were in the same school was in high school. And I took all AP classes, and my brother did not, and I did not take art. So our teachers didn't pass. I don't think there was a single teacher that I had that he had. Just kind of weird. Yeah, we don't need those skills. I mean, I knew when I gained 10 pounds this summer, I did not need the doctor's scale to tell me that I had gained 10 pounds because I already knew it. I knew how my clothes fit. I knew how I looked. And yeah, and it's hard when it's your family talking about your weight or how you look or whatever. I mean, we are our own worst critics. Again, that goes back to, some of our things. We've talked about a lot of it, but some other points are feeling generally unworthy. just having this deep down, there's really a, no matter what I do, no matter, how much I try, I'm never going to be good enough. And just that kind of belief down, so even if things go good, eventually they'll go bad. So I'm just, and that affects how we're in relationships, because if we've got this belief, we're going to self-sabotage every single time because we don't believe that they really should choose us. Whether that's a friendship, whether it's a romantic relationship, we are definitely going to self-sabotage. Another part of this is toxic shame. Again, and a lot of these, it's just these feelings that we hold deep inside. And we say deep inside because it's hardwired. So you have to undo that wiring. So there is a deep, deep sense of feeling that something is wrong with us, that we're unlovable for some reason. Again, so even if things are going well, there's something we're going to do to screw it up. And or if somebody's telling you they like you or they love you, there's a piece of you going, you can't really. I'm bad. I'm horrible. So you doubt their sincerity when you shouldn't. And that's because of how we feel inside. Talk about some of these other ones, just kind of get through. Dissociation is one, and we're not talking about to the level of DID, although that can obviously happen with severe abuse. But dissociation to the point of like daydreaming, often living in a fantasy world. Reading was my escape. That was my living in a fantasy world. Books were my salvation. It was the only thing I really had to do at home. And I could do that in my room with the door closed, and I would not be around to be yelled at. So again, there's that isolation, being able to be calm and just be and not be yelled at and not be feeling like I'm doing something wrong. I can just read my book and live through whatever's going through in my book. And that's how I got through basically most of my childhood, and to some extent my adolescence. This is also why people with C-PTSD, childhood C-PTSD, have a hard time initially meditating or being present in the moment, because of this dissociation that we do tend to do. Yeah, I'm with you, Crystal. I mean, my mom's a constant reader, and she still is to this day. If she's not doing something, she's reading. That's it. And that was me growing up. I was the kid who always had a book with them. Oh, wow. That's harsh, because at 5'10", your resting weight, the ideal weight or whatever, is going to be a bigger number than someone who's 5'6". And we so look upon that, like, over 120 pounds, something in the 120s is fat. And it's totally not true. It depends on your body structure. It depends on how tall you are. I mean, to say to somebody who's 5'10" and 160, you're fat, probably not. They're at a good weight, especially if they're muscular, because muscle weighs twice as much as fat does. Low self-esteem is definitely a hallmark of C-PTSD. It goes along with the shame, the feeling of unworthiness, all of that affects our self-esteem, because we feel we're just bottom of the barrel. I mean, even when somebody tells you you're not, you may want to believe them, and maybe on some level you do, but there's always that voice in the back of your head that's saying, no, you're not. And it's so hard to deal with. Yeah, I think books saved a lot of us. It's a good way to escape what you're having to deal with. Isolation, being away from somebody, and just being able to be. We feel safe when we're just with ourselves. And so it is definitely a survival mechanism. And that's another hallmark of childhood CPTSD, is that we're always living in survival mode. That goes along with that always on edge, always that hypervigilance. We are always, there's always a panic inside us. That's why we get the anxiety. That's why we have the anxiety from the hypervigilance and from living in survival mode. And it can be to the point where we think we have to do everything right because it's going to affect our future, right? It's going to, if I don't do this, then that X, Y, and Z is not going to happen. And then, holy Christ, how can I live with myself that I did that? So you're always trying to be the most. And you're always just, it's difficult to just be calm and not everything to be a fight, flight, or freeze type of situation. But it's a hallmark of us. Hyper and excessively controlling is another hallmark of us. And it doesn't have to be necessarily in a negative way. Yes, there is a lot of that. But it can be in our adulthood, always trying to be better than, going along with that perfectionist. Things have to be done this way. Things have to be done right. This is the right way to do things. She likened it to, you have to load the dishwasher this way because it's the right way to do it, and the dishes will get clean, the cleanest this way. Well, you know what? If someone does it differently and they still get clean, that's our issue, right? We've got to be able, and that was something my dad couldn't do. With the Marines, there was one way to do something, and that was the right way. So there's only one way to do something. So when my son was growing up, he would often try and step in and give him the answer to something and say, here's how you do it. And I'm like, no, let him figure it out. And he's like, why should he go through all those steps if he doesn't need them when I can tell him the right way to do it? I'm like, because he's learning. That didn't compute for my dad. It was, oh my gosh, Crystal, you and me. I read those teen romance ones where they were numbered. It was before the I forget what the series was that came off when I was in high school. There's a name to it, but it was before then. But they had numbers, and that was my goal, was to get every single one of them. So I'd buy them from the library if I could or whatever. So I had 1 through 200 and some. I had big gaps, no doubt. But excuse me, gotta grab this. Crystal, I can only imagine you've been through so much, and that's why I hope you take from this, every time I say it, and I mean it truly, you're a survivor. You made it this far. I know I was bullied big time at school, big time. And looking back on some things, I realized that there may be some guys who are genuinely interested in me, especially looking at 7th and 8th grade type thing. But because of my C-PTSD, it was really hard for me to believe that they were actually interested in me. Combine that with the bullying, I didn't know if they were pretending to be interested in me so that then I would become interested, and then they would be like, did you really believe that I would be interested in you? Come on, right? And then it would be a big joke. That was always my fear. So, because you're combining these two things that we didn't. Babysitters Club, that came out after. That came out when I was in high school, so I wasn't reading the teen romances so much then. I had too much reading for school to do at that point. Let's get through just a couple other ones. Let's see. Living in a state of hypervigilance, isolating, repeating cycles and patterns from your childhood, chronic health issues, chronic mental health issues, dissociation, harsh inner critic, perfectionism, toxic shame, living in survival mode, generally unworthy, a general feeling of unworthiness, emotional flashbacks, which we're going to talk about more on Wednesday, and hyper and excessive controllingness, and difficulty trusting. And this goes into right what I was saying. I couldn't trust that that person meant what they said. I couldn't trust that people were who they said they were. So if they said they were interested in me as a friend, were they really? Genuinely? Or just to be able to make fun of me? You learned when you were a kid that people aren't safe. They hurt you. They leave you. They're not who they say they are. The only people we can count on is ourselves. So when you combine all the other things that go along with PTSD, the things that we learned growing up with such abuse, such dysfunction, I'm proud of each and every one of us who is here now, who is a functioning member of society. Because it has taken a lot for us to be able to get here. Because I know most of us are older than 40. We've lived a lot. So I want each and every one of you to pat yourself on the back. Give yourself a hug. If there's nobody else around you to give you a hug, pat yourself on the back. You're here. You've done well. Because you're here now. And the fact that you're even here with me means you want to learn more. and you want to be better, and you want to connect with other people who are like this so that we can, we can deal with some of this and heal. I'm not a replacement for therapy, but it's a place at least that we can learn from the topics and we can learn from each other. And that we're still trying to do this and we're still striving to move forward in our lives. It says something about our fortitude and our inner strength, because it takes a lot to get here. When we look at the numbers of people who have turned out not so well and people who have unalived themselves, the numbers are staggering. So to be part of the percentage that says, yeah, I'm good, I'm here, I'm making it, I congratulate each and every one of you. So I think that's probably a good place to wrap up. As I said, we're going to be talking about the emotional flashback issue of the signs of childhood C-PTSD, since so many of us have it, and what kind of emotional flashbacks are there? What do they do for you? And how can we combat dealing with our reaction, combat being better at how we react? Because we can't beat our subconscious, right? We can't beat that trigger. So we're going to be triggered, but it is possible to reprogram ourselves into how we respond to that trigger. And eventually, what happens then is we're not triggered by that anymore. We've learned to deal with it. So just the fact that you hear a car door slam at 5 o'clock, you're like, yeah, wonder who's here. And it's not panic, because you know that mom's home or dad's home. And crap, now I get to deal with them. What am I going to be at fault for? How am I going to get abused? So we're going to talk about all of that. On Wednesday. I think that'll be a good midweek topic to talk about. Crystal, I can talk for a little bit. I'm pretty worn from the day. So if there's anybody else that can also jump in and talk, I know Crystal's looking for someone to speak with after this. If you want to just stay, I can send you a link. I can send you a link and we can just do a private one of these. And so it doesn't go out to anybody. And it's not something that needs to be recorded either. So we can speak without it being recorded. Which, Misha, if you're still listening, we might need to redo our talk. I think we were speaking and we weren't live, so it wasn't recording. I thought because we saw each other and we were talking, I just assumed, I don't know why, that it was recording, and I think maybe it wasn't. So don't hate me. But there was stuff we were going to edit out anyway, right? So here we can just do straight. Okay, good. And we were going to do a second one anyway, so now we can just combine everything into one that we were going to talk about. So get with me when you want to redo that. You definitely need to get on Discord, Crystal. There's so many people from here and Lifeboat, because we cross over so much, that are on there. You definitely need to. Hopefully we're going to get an influx of new people. Jen Marie, she's going on at 7 tonight, guys. Just to let you know, she's going to do an update on what happened on Capitol Hill this week. She did not end up going, but she followed it and followed who all was speaking and what happened there. So I believe that's what she's going to be doing at 7 o'clock tonight. She's going to go live and do an update on that. So if you want to see that and find out what happened in the troubled teen industry this week on Capitol Hill and what happened with the bill, I'm not sure myself what happened. Wasn't able to follow along. I saw some of the senators speaking, and then I had to get back to work. So that's as far as I got with it. But yeah, I think that's it. Crystal, yeah, you definitely need to get on Discord. If there's anyone who can walk her through that or help her with that, I have not been on Discord in forever and have totally forgotten how to do any of that. So if somebody works it out with you so that you can do that, great. I will keep a stream open. I've got to close this one and open a new one, and I can email you a link to that stream. And if you need it, great. If not, just let me know that you're speaking to somebody another way. And you can do that. Even if everyone has a channel because they are on YouTube. So in YouTube, you can go to your channel, just says, your channel or whatever. You can go to your channel and then you can go live, and all you do is choose private, and you can talk to each other just like this. You just add them to the screen like I do. Another person will show up on the box that says add to stage, and you can talk, and you don't even have to record it. So anybody who has a YouTube channel can do that, just so you know. But you have a YouTube channel because you are on YouTube. It's just normally we're doing our home page and our home self, and we don't have subscribers or things like that, with our personal. That's most of us. I have 11 subscribers on my personal channel. I don't know why. I don't post anything. I think they probably subscribed there mistakenly and just never unsubscribed and then subscribed over here, because the only thing on there is like literally, I think, a 8-second video of my son doing Legos with me. So it's really boring over there. Oh, usually you have a brand account if you set it up that way. It might have asked you what type of account you want, and you clicked the wrong thing or something. That's possible. But you can do it the same, whether you have a brand account or personal account or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. So as long as you have a camera that you can use, and most computers do nowadays. So, all right, guys, I am fading fast. Please hit that like button on your way out. Really appreciate it. The algorithm appreciates it. If you think about it, wait a second, drop a line in the comments. The algorithm loves that too. Even if it's just hi or great show or, something like that, the algorithm picks that up, and it's, so it's really important, and it helps to push these videos out to more people. So want to get a little bit more exposure. That's going to be, the reason I was talking about Jen Marie, more exposure. One of the people who she met through the TTI industry actually is part of just a group. They don't have a YouTube. I don't think I'm not sure if it's a formal group or anything, but it's of SA survivors within TTI. So I'm like, oh boy, come on, get them over here, So hopefully we might have a new crew. You might have some names that you don't recognize. And my guess is if that happens, it's going to be, and they may just be lurkers. I don't know, if they come over. But if there's some names you don't recognize, probably from the TTI industry, going to be my guess. So unless we get pushed out to some different people that maybe once my shorter videos get going, I'm hoping that those can get pushed out to more people. But as always, so hit the like button, hit subscribe, check your subscribe. I seem to go from 167 to 169 during the week. It goes like this. It's like the same 1 or 2 subscribers that just keep going up and down. I don't know why YouTube's playing with them like that. I don't know if it's actual people or what, or it's just playing with the numbers, but it goes through that every week. It's so odd. So we'll see. We'll see when we go up again. Yeah, so we're going to end it here. Thanks for being here with me today, guys. Thanks for going over this subject with me. I think it was an important one to, I didn't know a whole lot about C-PTSD either. And some of the things made some definite light bulbs go off for me, and some things that I need to sit with and think about a little bit, and how it affects my life, and how I need to deal with it going forward, things I need to be aware of. And if you join me for Wednesdays live at 7 Eastern, I'm going to figure out how to change my banner, and I'm going to be putting my times up there. So 7 o'clock Eastern on Wednesdays, and then Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to put that on my banner instead of having something like that, because I don't know how else to get it on there. I mean, I could do a community post, but I don't know how else to put it right in front of your faces other than that. So I think that's what I'll do with the banner, so you guys always know. Unless I cancel, I'm always at these times. So even if you don't get a notification, normally it's 3 p.m. Today I had to push it, so I let you guys know early just because of the party, but I will always at least try to make up that time. All right. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hit that like, subscribe button, bell for notifications. Tell anybody you know about the channel. Want to get the word out. We want more people to be able to come and have a safe space to be. It is really my life's goal. I want anyone who needs this to be able to come here and connect with all of us, this wonderful group of people that we have here, and to be able to just feel the love, feel the connection, know that you're not alone. Know that you are valuable, you are worthy, no matter what our C-PTSD says. You're strong because you've made it this far. You're a survivor. You have an inner strength that you may not even realize how strong it is. And you're loved. You're loved for who you are. Hugs and love from me. Here, we survive together. It's never alone. I'm just realizing now that I didn't introduce the show. It's surviving together if you guys haven't figured that out by now. Oh, geez, oh, Pete. Anyway, that's how it goes sometimes, you know. I'm not a professional, just doing the best I can here. Y'all have a great rest of your weekend, okay? Hugs and love to each and every one of you. Thanks for joining me. Night to those who are in different time zones, and have a good rest of your evening for everybody else. So now I got to get over here, figure out how to end my stream. All right. Bye, guys.